Mics are hot, data is live. Board is clear, the numbers don't lie. Welcome to the echo chamber. I'm Jax. Every industry is being reshaped in real time, and if you're not careful, you'll lose the signal in the static. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the accounting and tax world. We're joined by our resident skeptic, Roxy, who brings a full decade of in-the-trenches experience to the table.
And I've seen enough cycles to know that the next big thing usually leaves a lot of wreckage behind, ready to poke holes in the hype.
And our resident strategist, Finn.
And ready to find the advantage in the chaos.
This is the first of our two-part special on this industry. We're stripping away the noise to see what's actually changing and what's meant to stay permanently human. But before we get into the weeds, I'm throwing a wrench in the gears. You two have been talking all week about where this industry is heading, but today, you don't get to choose your sides.
Oh, great. What are we doing, Jax?
Finn, you're our tech evangelist. I want you to argue that we should be handing the keys over to the machines. Full stop. Automation, AI, the whole package. The faster we move, the better.
Easy. I'll make a case for why clinging to the manual grind is the fastest way to become a relic. If you aren't automating, you aren't just inefficient, you're obsolete.
And Roxy, you're the skeptic. I want you to argue that we're moving way too fast. I want you to defend the idea that this technology is getting the soul of the profession and leaving good people behind.
That's not even a stretch, Jax. Just because we can automate a reconciliation doesn't mean we should. I'll show you exactly how much future we lose when we let a machine handle the human side of a client's livelihood. Let's see if Finn's code can hold up when the client is actually, a person.
Perfect. The gloves are off. Let's get to work. All right, let's look at the board. We're seeing massive waves, autonomous reconciliation, predictive auditing, and the death of traditional data entry. Finn, you've got the floor. Sell me the future.
It's not just a sell, Jax. It's a necessity. We've been shackled to the keyboard for decades, manually punching in numbers and chasing typos. With AI agents, we move to autonomous reconciliation. The machine doesn't get tired, it doesn't need a break, and it doesn't miss a decimal point. We aren't losing the profession. We're finally automating the stuff that made us look like glorified calculators. If we don't embrace this, we're doing a disservice to the client by being slower and more expensive than we need to be.
That sounds great in a boardroom, Finn, but let's talk about the wreckage I mentioned. You talk about shackles, but that data entry was where we learned the flow of the client's business. It's where we caught the anomalies that a machine would just optimize away. You're trading accuracy for velocity, and you're assuming that the AI knows the difference between a tax strategy and a clerical error. It doesn't. And when that AI makes a perfect mistake, guess whose signature is on the bottom of the return?
That's a lazy argument, Roxy. You're focusing on the error rate of a tool, not the potential of the system. Predictive auditing means we're catching things in real time, not waiting for a surprise at the end of the year. The human element isn't gone. It's just moved up the food chain. We aren't supposed to be data clerks. We're supposed to be architects.
Architects? Architects need a foundation. If you automate the foundation until it's invisible, you don't have an architecture, you have a house of cards. You're asking professionals to trust a black box to tell them the story of their client's finances. A machine can show you a graph of where the money went, but it can't tell you why the client made those choices. You're betting everything on the speed of the machine, but you're forgetting that the why is the only thing the client is actually paying for.
Hold that thought. We got an incoming signal from the mailbag, a listener who is feeling exactly what you two are sparring about.
Hey guys. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Look, I've been a tax pro for about 15 years. I hear you talking about autonomous reconciliation and AI agents like it's this big, exciting upgrade. But honestly, it just sounds like my job is evaporating. I'm not a tech expert, I'm a tax guy. I don't want to spend my summer learning how to be a programmer just to stay relevant. Am I just done? Should I be looking for a different career, or am I just not seeing the advantage Finn keeps talking about?
That hits hard. Finn, you're the tech evangelist. This guy is literally doing the old way, and he's terrified. Convince him he's not becoming a relic.
I hear the frustration, I really do. But think of it this way, the tech isn't evaporating your job, it's evaporating the boring parts. You're spending your time being a high-paid data entry clerk. That's not what you went to school for, and that's not what your clients are actually getting value from. Use the tools to handle the noise so you can be the consultant you already have the experience to be. You're not being replaced, you're being freed.
Free to do what, Finn? To stare at a dashboard all day? Listen, caller, I get it. You aren't done. You're just being gaslit by people who think speed is the only metric of success. Don't feel pressured to become a software engineer overnight. Start small. Find one task that's killing your sanity and find a tool that helps with that. Not the whole firm. You're not a relic. You're a human being who still has a decade of professional judgment that an algorithm hasn't even begun to touch.
Two very different ways to look at the same cliff. Let's take a breath and talk about what happened when a real firm, Miller and Fern, decided to jump. So let's get real. Does this actually work in the wild? Finn, walk us through the Miller and Fern shift.
Right. So, Miller and Fern, traditional firm, drowning in seasonal burnout. They were the poster children for the billable hour grind. They finally hit a wall and implemented an AI orchestration layer that automated 80% of their routine bookkeeping and data reconciliation.
And I'm sure they told the staff, congratulations, half of you are out of a job, right?
Actually, no. That's the irony. They didn't lay anyone off. They upskilled. They took those grunt work hours and turned their junior associates into what they call fractional CFOs. They started offering high-level strategic forecasting to their clients. Their revenue didn't just stabilize, it grew 40% in 1 year because they stopped selling their time and started selling their foresight.
Okay, that's the shiny press release version. But let's be honest about the transition period. A firm doesn't just flip a switch and go from data entry to CFO services. What happened to the culture during that change? Did the staff feel empowered, or did they feel like they were being trained to be assistants to the machines?
It wasn't easy, Roxy. They had turnover. They had people who couldn't, or wouldn't pivot. But the ones who stayed, they're the ones who are now working 40 hours a week instead of 80, and actually billing more. They aren't assistants to the machines, they're the ones directing them. The AI does the heavy lifting, the human does the thinking. That's the edge.
It's a powerful story, Finn. But it highlights the cost. The win only happens if you're willing to completely dismantle how you operate. For a lot of the people listening, that's not a success story. That's a disruption they're not sure they can afford to survive.
And that is exactly where we need to look closer. We've got the vision, we've got the fear, and now we've got the reality of what it costs. We're going to break down the old way versus the new way, and see what's actually worth keeping. Let's lay it out on the table. The old way was the billable hour grind. You were paid to move numbers from a pile of receipts into a spreadsheet. The new way is the strategic advisory model. You are a partner in the client's growth, using AI-generated data to solve business problems before they become crises. Finn, lay out the contrast.
The billable hour model was a trap. It actually incentivized inefficiency. The slower you were, the more you made. It's insane when you think about it. In this new model, speed is a feature, not a bug. When you use AI to condense 3 days of work into 3 minutes, you aren't losing billable hours. You're creating the space to charge for value. You stop being a cost on the client's balance sheet and start being an asset that drives their ROI.
I agree that the billable hour is dying, but let's look at the flip side. When you turn accounting or tax prep into a 3-minute automation job, you're also cutting out the check-in. You're stripping away the recurring interactions where we actually build the trust that holds a client firm for a decade. If the only time I interact with a client is to give them a strategic forecast, I've lost the intimate knowledge of their struggles. You're trading time for data, but the client pays for understanding. How do we keep that?
You keep it by changing what you talk about. Instead of calling them for a missing receipt, you're calling them to discuss a trend the AI flagged in their cash flow. The conversation doesn't go away, Roxy. It just moves up from what happened to what's next.
we're going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors. Stay with us. We've got one more critical point to hit before we wrap this part of the conversation.
How many of your automated financial reports are actually accurate?
Exactly. When the software thinks it's right, but the reality is skewed, your firm is the one on the hook for the audit.
Don't wait for the regulatory hammer. Sentinel Ledger is the only AI auditor that lives inside your data, flagging subtle deviations that traditional software misses. When the regulators come knocking, make sure you're the one holding the truth. Secure your firm's legacy at sentinelledger.com/sentinel. That's SENTINALLEDGEL. Come and use promo code ECHO25, that's ECHO25, to let them know who sent you.
Please note, these services are just fictional. Stay skeptical, stay human.
We're back in the echo chamber. Before we close the book on this first half, I want to leave you with one thing. We've been talking about the landscape, the shift, the tech, the fear. But there's a trap here. Roxy, you mentioned that you can't automate empathy.
Right. Finn is talking about systems and I'm talking about people. And the trap is thinking you have to choose between them. If you come away from this thinking that you need to be a tech person to survive, you've already lost. You're not a tech person. You're a professional who needs to pick up a new tool. Don't mistake the tool for the job.
And don't mistake the new way for the end of your expertise. The tech handles the what and the when. But you, the human in the chair, that's the only one who handles the why. That's the piece that's staying put.
If you're not questioning the black box, you're not a user. You're a victim. Keep your notes messy.
Keep the code clean. See you next time.
We've seen the battlefield, and we've seen the tech. But honestly, we're just getting to the heart of the matter. We're going to show you how to actually make that pivot without losing your mind or your soul in the process. So, hit play on the next episode. We'll see you there. Like, subscribe, and share. Tell the algorithm to send this to the people who need to hear it most. Help us drown out the noise. Until next time, keep leading.